América del Sur ni a nuestra América. Y si algún día tocan a Venezuela, toda la América se levantará por nosotros.
Acaban de explotar el puerto de este.
So now let's go to reaction that's pouring in from world leaders this morning who are waking up to a new reality with what happened overnight.
Imagine the sky over Caracas turning pitch black as the power grid suddenly fails. It's 2 a.m. on January 3rd, 2026. Suddenly, the silence is shattered by the roar of 150 high-tech aircraft, F-22 Raptors, F-35s, and stealth drones, shredding through one of the most formidable air defense systems in Latin America. In a daring, lightning-fast raid codenamed Operation Absolute Resolve, U.S. Delta Force commandos and the FBI's hostage rescue team storm a fortress-like compound in Fort Tiuna. Within minutes, the man who has ruled Venezuela with an iron fist for over a decade, Nicolas Maduro, is blindfolded, handcuffed, and whisked away on a helicopter. Why did this happen? How did the country with the world's largest oil reserves end up at the center of the largest military operation in the region since the 1989 invasion of Panama? Stay until the end of this video because we are going to reveal the curse of oil that connects 16th century gold hunters to the modern-day collapse and why the capture of Maduro might just be history repeating itself in a way no one expected. To understand Maduro's fall, we have to go back 15,000 years. The first inhabitants of Venezuela were Paleo-Indians who hunted massive megafauna like giant ground sloths and toxodonts in the state of Falcón. By 1000 CE, complex societies began to emerge. The most sophisticated were the Timoto-Cuica people of the Andes. They built terraced fields with advanced irrigation, lived in stone houses, and, most importantly, they are credited with inventing the arepa, the staple of Venezuelan cuisine today. Crucially, these indigenous groups were the first to encounter a thick, black liquid seeping from the ground, which they called mene. They used it for medicine and to waterproof their canoes. They didn't know it then, but this mene, oil, would one day become the lifeblood and the poison of their nation. In 1498, Christopher Columbus reached the Venezuelan coast during his third voyage, calling it the Land of Grace because of its lush beauty. A year later, Alonso de Ojeda saw indigenous villages built on stilts over Lake Maracaibo. It reminded him of Venice, so he named the territory Venezuela, or Little Venice. The early colonial era was brutal. The Spanish enslaved indigenous people to harvest pearls until the oyster beds were completely exhausted by 1531. Then came a bizarre twist. King Charles V actually gave the colony to a German banking family, the Welsers, to pay off his debts. They called it Klein Venedish and spent decades searching for the mythical city of gold, El Dorado, before the Spanish crown took it back in 1546. By the 18th century, Venezuela was a plantation economy driven by cacao and worked by enslaved Africans. To control the massive smuggling trade, Spain created the Guipuzcoana Company, a Basque monopoly that dictated every aspect of Venezuelan life. The resentment this created among the local elite, the Mantuanos, planted the first seeds of revolution. In 1810, taking advantage of Napoleon's invasion of Spain, Caracas declared its independence. This ignited a bloody 13-year war. A young aristocrat named Simón Bolívar rose to lead the movement. Bolívar's vision was grand, Gran Colombia, a massive unified nation comprising modern-day Venezuela, Colombia, Ecuador, and Panama. After a decisive victory at the Battle of Carabobo in 1821, the Spanish were finally expelled. But Bolívar's dream was short-lived. Regional rivalries and the lack of roads made Gran Colombia impossible to govern. In 1830, Venezuela broke away to become an independent republic. Bolívar died shortly after, penniless and disillusioned, famously saying, "I have plowed the sea." For the next 70 years, Venezuela was defined by caudillismo, the rule of strongmen. The country saw 166 armed revolts. The most dominant figure was José Antonio Páez, a war hero who ruled either as president or the power behind the throne for decades. The 19th century was also marked by the Federal War, 1859 to 1863, the bloodiest civil war in the nation's history. It was a struggle between the centralist conservatives and the federalist liberals. Around 100,000 people died, nearly 10% of the population, resulting in a victory for the liberals and the creation of the modern state system. In the late 1800s, Antonio Guzmán Blanco, the civilizing autocrat, modernized Caracas into a mini Paris, but he also amassed a massive fortune through foreign loans, setting a precedent for future corruption. In 1908, Juan Vicente Gómez seized power in a coup. His 27-year rule changed everything because it coincided with the discovery of massive oil deposits. In 1922, the Barroso II well blew a 200-foot spout of oil, signaling the start of the petroleum age. By 1929, Venezuela was the world's leading oil exporter. Gómez used this wealth to build a professional army and a telegraph network to crush any rebellion. He paid off the national debt, but his regime was marked by systemic torture and forced labor. He even changed his birthday to match Simón Bolívar's to build a cult of personality. Notice the pattern? A charismatic leader dies, a loyal successor takes over, and oil prices determine the fate of the nation. After a brief democratic experiment known as the Trienio Adeco, 1945 to 1948, another dictator, Marcos Pérez Jiménez, took over. He used oil money to build massive skyscrapers and highways, but was eventually ousted by a popular uprising in 1958. To prevent more dictatorships, the major political parties signed the Punto Fijo Pact. This created a stable two-party democracy that lasted for 40 years. For a while, Venezuela was the envy of Latin America, boasting high wages and a booming middle class. But the system was built on oil. When oil prices crashed in the 1980s, the economy collapsed. Discontent exploded in 1989 with the Caracazo, a wave of riots that the government suppressed with massive force, leaving hundreds dead. In 1992, a young paratrooper lieutenant colonel named Hugo Chavez led a failed coup attempt. Though he went to jail, his brief appearance on national TV saying his goals were not achieved for now captivated the poor. He was pardoned in 1994 and elected president in 1998. Chavez launched the Bolivarian Revolution, rewritten the Constitution, and used a massive oil windfall to fund social programs called misiones. While he reduced poverty, he also centralized power, replaced experts with loyalists, and began a hostile relationship with the United States. When Chavez died of cancer in 2013, he handpicked Nicolas Maduro to succeed him. Maduro lacked Chavez's charisma and inherited a collapsing economy. As oil production plummeted and the government printed money to survive, the country was hit by hyperinflation of nearly 2 million%. Millions of Venezuelans fled the country in the largest refugee crisis in Latin American history. Despite a fraudulent 2024 election where the opposition claimed a decisive victory, Maduro refused to step down. The U.S. responded with a naval blockade and designated his government a narco-state. This brings us to the present. The U.S. administration, citing a 2020 narco-terrorism indictment, decided to act. The operation was a masterpiece of intelligence and technology. U.S. forces utilized kamikaze drones for the first time in history and used cyber warfare to turn off the lights in Caracas. Maduro was captured at his home in Fort Tiuna and flown to New York. On January 5, 2026, he appeared in a Manhattan court, pleading not guilty and claiming he is a prisoner of war. Maduro is gone, but the Bolivarian Revolution isn't over. His vice president, Delcy Rodriguez, has been sworn in as acting president. While she calls Maduro's capture a kidnapping, the U.S. has signaled they will run Venezuela's oil policy until a transition occurs. Venezuela stands at a crossroads. Will it return to democracy under opposition leaders like Maria Corina Machado, or will it simply see a new head on the same authoritarian body? History tells us that in Venezuela, whoever controls the oil controls the power. But after 13,000 years of history, the Venezuelan people are still waiting for their true independence. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the history that explains our world. What do you think? Will Maduro's capture finally bring peace to Venezuela? Let us know in the comments below.